A haunted house can usually be easy to tolerate if the spirits seem benign, but in these two cases, sent by Weird World viewers, the sinister presences were quite intolerable. Burly Phantom. Rach Walford is from Norfolk in the UK. In 2001, at the age of 10, she and her family moved from the city she was born to a different part of the country. It was a fresh start for them all, her mother, father, brother and the pet dog. They moved into a quite newly built house of about 20 years old or so, but literally as soon as they moved in, odd things started to happen. And years later, Rach had goosebumps just thinking and writing about it. The family would all be in the living room watching TV, and it would sound like someone was upstairs moving furniture around. Heavy items like the bed, the wardrobe, everything. The racket was unbearably loud, and of course, on going upstairs to check, nothing would be happening or out of place. The house was also freezing cold in random spots, while the dog became unnerved and would start growling and barking in different rooms of the house, and even in the middle of the night, which made things even more frightening. As there were no smartphones with cameras, her mother started snapping her camera whenever the dog went ballistic. But on developing the photos, nothing showed up, just a picture of the dog. Rach remembers that from the age of 11, she set up a blow-up bed at the foot of her parents' bed, where she slept until they moved out, only 18 months later, because it was just too stressful for them all. One evening, her parents went to bingo, leaving Rach at home with her brother babysitting her. It was a dark night, and her brother eventually snuck out of the house to meet up with his mates, saying he'd be back in an hour to be there when the parents returned. He reassured Rach that there was nothing scary in the house, but after he left, she sat there petrified. She called her now oldest friend, then her best friend back in the city, and told her that she was home alone and about what had been occurring. Her friend agreed to stay on the phone with her until either her brother or parents returned. During the phone call, the noises upstairs started to occur, and Rach put on her speakerphone and asked, "Can you hear the noises I'm talking about in the background?" Her friend's response, which she'll never forget, was, "What the hell? Please get out of the house. Even if you have to sit in the garden, just go." With that, she put the phone down, her trainers on, and climbed out of the living room window. She was too scared even to go into the hall, as the stairway was facing down towards the front door. Rach ran all the way to the bingo hall, which was on site in a holiday camp about 10 minutes away. When she got there, she was still shaking with fear and told her parents she never wanted to be left alone in the house again. Rach's mother also recounted how one time, while she and her brother were at school and father at work, she was home alone and heard something in the hall. She went to check out the noise and saw a girl wandering up onto the landing. For a split second, she thought it was Rach, until realisation set in. Strangely, this was when the haunting became serious and quite risky for the family to be there. They went back to their home city that Christmas and stayed with relatives. On their return, their house was completely trashed. They found all their clothes ripped out of the wardrobes, quilts and pillows in heaps on the floors, shower curtains ripped down, and, the most bizarre thing of all, the mat in front of their fireplace was turned over, and there was some kind of fire poker lying on top of it that they'd never seen before in their lives. Their parents sent Rach and her brother outside while they worked out if someone was in one of the bedrooms or attics, and checked windows or for any signs of forced entry or break-in. They found nothing and nobody, no broken locks, windows, nothing. At this point, Rach's mum decided to get a Catholic priest to come and bless the house. Rach's granddad was a staunch Catholic and had done this with every house they lived in when they were children. A few weeks later, Rach and her mum were walking the dog on a green opposite the house. They stopped for him to relieve himself, and meanwhile Rach looked up at their house where she and her brother's bedroom and the bathroom windows were visible. Rach was shocked to see what looked like a massive outline of a man standing at her brother's window, looking back out at them. Without breaking eye contact with the spectre, Rach asked her mother, "Can you see that in the window?" Her chilling reply was, "I'm seeing what you're seeing. Come on, we have to get back inside. Your brother is alone in there." When they got back, they asked her brother if he was okay and whether anything had happened. He said he was fine and told them no. However, not long after that, Rach's parents put the house up for sale and it was quickly sold. Her father, who had been a complete skeptic before this experience, said he felt strange in the house like no house had ever made him feel. He couldn't deny the noises upstairs and also said he had once seen a small girl out on the patio during dusk. The sighting had really frightened him and he didn't tell the family that until they'd moved house. On the moving day, Rach and her brother were at school while her parents transported boxes to and fro to their new home in the next village. Her dad was at the old house packing up the last bits when her mum made her final return there to pick him up. He was standing outside the house when she pulled up on the drive, and when he got in the car, he looked like he was in shock. He turned and said to Rach's mum, "I don't want to talk about it, but please, let's get the hell out of here. I never want to look at that house again." To this day, 20 years later, he still doesn't talk about what he saw or what happened when he was alone there. The family has since surmised that perhaps the massive presence standing in the window was some kind of malevolent force that possibly caused harm to the small girl, but they will never know. Whatever it was, they believe it was evil. The people who bought the house off Rach's family in 2001 still live there, and she often wonders if they have experienced any of these strange and frightening phenomena. The Watcher. Andrew McCartney lives in Hull in East Yorkshire in the UK. In early 1995, at age 33, he and his partner Janet moved into a house in Egdon Street, a 2-bedroom terraced house near the River Hull. On their very first night in the house, they were both asleep in the front upstairs bedroom when they awoke to violent thrashing noises downstairs. The sound was directly underneath them in the living room. They could hear what sounded like the casters on the furniture spinning and squealing as they moved around, and the sound of objects being thrown about and crashing into walls. Initially they thought it was burglars. As the noises continued, Andrew summoned the courage to investigate and picked up a baseball bat from the back bedroom. As he slowly descended the twisty old staircase, the noises continued. He stood behind the living room door in the kitchen, then pushed the door open with some force. Immediately the sound stopped, although he could still hear the residual echo from it. Switching the lights on, he leapt into the room, expecting to confront burglars. Instead, the room was deserted. However, all the furniture, couch, chairs, coffee table, TV and carpets, all were pushed into a heap in the centre of the room. Andrew quickly checked all the doors and windows, both front and back doors and every single window. All were secure, so that he and Janet were at a loss to explain what they had experienced. If they hadn't both heard and seen it, he doubts if anyone, including themselves, would have believed it. Thankfully, they never went through anything like that again, but they both agreed that there was a sinister feel to the bathroom, a sensation, indeed a certainty, that you were being watched. As the years passed, nothing further happened, and they moved out in the year 2000. Andrew's friend Alan then moved into Egdon Street, and later, when he moved out, he asked Andrew to help, as at the time Andrew owned a large van. During the move, Alan asked him, "Did you ever have anything weird happen when you lived here?" Andrew told him his story, then, wide-eyed, Alan said that he had had a few experiences. One afternoon, he was securing a utensil holder on the kitchen wall. He did so and then placed all his utensils on it. Turning his back momentarily to pick his lighter up, he found it had gone, and then, turning back to the utensil rack, he was astonished. All his utensils were now laid out in a neat row on the worktop. Later he found his lighter balanced at an odd angle in the living room. Alan also added that his bathroom was scary and that he felt watched. The strange occurrences didn't end there. Another friend, Barry, said his girlfriend June had lived in Egton Street and was moving out, also asking Andrew to help. Whilst helping with the move, Barry asked Andrew if June could have a word, and he knew what was coming. June also said that she had experienced odd things happening. Objects moved around, and the phenomenon that terrified her the most was again the feeling of being watched in the bathroom. With all this in mind, Andrew did a little bit of research. Where the kitchen and bathroom stood in the house was actually an addition to the original. Another house had stood where the extension of the bathroom and kitchen had been built. In 1941, the city of Hull was badly bombed, and the houses along the river corridor where the house is situated took the brunt. Many streets were completely flattened, and whole families were killed overnight. The fire was so massive that the Luftwaffe used the Inferno as a guide to bomb industrial Hull. Flowers are still placed in Egton Street and adjoining Mulgrave Street. From the historical records and local knowledge, Andrew has concluded that the family who were killed in the adjoining house could be the source of the hauntings. He says that the house still stands, but people tend not to stay for very long.